It's time to live life through the eyes of fit people so that you too can live a fit life yourself. This is Fit Because. I'm one of your hosts, Jennifer Zerling, but you can call me Jay-Z. I'm a fitness and age management expert, author, speaker, as well as an international health advocate.
And I'm your other host, George Veter. I'm an entrepreneur, cattle rancher, fitness enthusiast, and a 6-time rodeo champion who has a huge amount of knowledge to share with you in the area of self-improvement.
Oh, he does. Get ready to learn how to bridge the gap between knowing what to do and doing what it takes to become physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and financially fit.
You ready, Jay-Z?
Oh, I'm ready, George.
Let's dive in.
And we're back. This is Fit Because. I'm Jay-Z, and I got my awesome co-host, George Veter, to my right. And we are super excited. This is going to be one epic episode. We have not only a guest speaker coming on with us by the name of Alexa Curtis, but we're going to be talking about a subject which I think is super duper important for every single person listening, of all ages, of all cultures. I mean, this is the real deal. And that subject is negative self-talk. Being a health coach myself and doing this for 20 years now, I find it very common that people live their lives in this language oriented around self-talk. And there's lots of reasons why people adopt this way of thinking. And I think we should be tackling strategies to overcome this language so that you guys can move forward and start developing those positive thoughts and positive motions forward. So let's start with George. I also want to involve our young lady, Alexa, who's joining us with Connecticut. You have a wonderful platform, Alexa, but I know that George and I have a lot to talk about with this topic as well. So let's make this like almost like a coffee talk since you got your local coffee that you're drinking. We know it's not coffee bean, but...
Of course.
So tell us about yourself, Alexa, and then George, please jump right in.
For sure. Well, thank you guys so much for having me on this. So basically, I started a platform called A Life in the Fashion Lane back in 2011 because I come from a very small town in Eastern Connecticut, never fit in, and wanted to create a platform that basically would help me deal with a lot of my body image issues and confidence issues I was dealing with when I was 12. And now I'm 20 and I run the site full time and have changed it to be completely off of fashion and is now all like social media and mental health. So back in 2016, I started a nonprofit called Media Impacted Navigation for Teens that is a nonprofit kind of like DARE, where we go in to schools and focus on a range of issues from cutting to sexting to bullying, and everything in that realm. So I love the topic that you guys are focusing on today, which is why I'm so excited to be chiming into this topic.
Yeah, absolutely. We're so excited to have you here, Alexa. And, when I think about negative self-talk, we all, I'm sure, can relate to that on some level, because wherever we are versus wherever we want to go, there's that little voice inside our head that's telling us, you can't do that. Who do you think you are? You failed at this, so what makes you think you're going to be successful at that? And so we have to have tools if we're going to successfully be able to combat that negative self-talk and diffuse it and then get empowered and move closer to our goals. So we'll give you some actionable ideas from our vantage point, and of course want to glean that from you, Alexa.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So let's hop in with you. I mean, you said you were bullied your whole life. You didn't fit in. What did that look like? And what sparked within you to overcome that?
Honestly, I was always just a really different kind of kid. Like, I was not kind of book smart. So I really was kind of always failing out of school, but loved writing. So the bullying started the minute that really I started my blog. But I had dealt with stuff before when I was in middle school. But, it's always like, when you're young, anybody, I feel like under the age of 18, now especially with social media, is battling, online bullies and in person, and everybody's just so insecure. So it's like all of these young people, though, nobody knows kind of where to turn to. So for me, it became like this outlet for me was this website, but so many like kids are getting bullied and stuff, and there's no resources out there and nobody's talking about it. So I felt like I could in some way like assist the conversation or start the conversation, but also kind of help myself too.
With social media and the world we live in now, with all of this information coming in so many different formats, that we are more we're more subject to comparison than ever before, right?
Completely. I think that the way that the internet has become, people in general, whether they're 16 or 35, are so badly looking for attention. And that really shows through what people post on Instagram, but more so what people post on Instagram is like, it's all kind of like feeding off of each other. So people are really looking to the internet as like a way to become like more confident. But really at the end of the day, I think it stems more issues and more insecurities because everybody's comparing themselves to somebody
Sounds like
else.
people are trying to get validated through the internet. And I mean, you're so young. You're only 20. I'm like double your age, girl. But
well, you look great. Talking to me about
fit because.
Oh my God.
But you know, it's interesting because I mean, I was bullied in high school, and I remember how challenging that was because I was part of the in-between groups. Like I was friends with virtually everybody, the athletes, the girls that, you know, came from wealthy environments and, you know, just all these different types of people. And I just remember being pulled out into the hallway and my heartbeat and how that felt. I was being bullied by the big dogs that would hang out and smoke cigarettes in the, you know, in the alley. And I just remember like going home and just not knowing like, oh my God, are they going to beat me up tomorrow? Like, so do you think it's actually worse now with social media? Like what do you think the phenomenon is and where do we go from here?
I can't tell you where we're going to go from here because it makes me anxious to think about it. I think the way that the world is currently going is so scary. But I think that social media has created a world where people can bully people through the internet. And that it was always kind of like that. But, you know, back in 2011, it's like people would bully people like, or say something on a LinkedIn page or via email. And now it's as simple as a DM or a comment and you are directly getting put down. So what I try and like say is, especially, you know, people, whether they're in the public eye or not, is like the best thing to do is just, you know, tailor your Instagram feed or your social media feed to be what you want, what makes you feel good. Like if you're following somebody that makes you feel even a little insecure, or you like her legs more than yours, or you think he's hotter than you, like, you know, why follow that person? But like, because of social media, you know, people think it's not affecting them really as much as it is. So people don't put as much kind of time and attention into it.
We handled on a previous vodcast the subject of learning how to create instead of competing. And I think that's a paradigm shift that really helps you just have more peace in your life and have more joy in the process of evolving to whatever it is you want to be, do, or have. And so if we're competing, there's always somebody, and we have examples and we have content showing us that there's someone better than us, that we aren't as good as whoever. Because we have so many of those feeds just constantly. And if we are allowing ourselves to be compared to, and if we feel like we have to compete against, then we're in a constant state of stress. But if we're creating, then it's about us and what we want, what we're building, and what we're going to contribute to the world. And that immediately takes that stress and the nasty part of competition away from us. Because when we compete, we have to take away from somebody to get, right?
Right.
There's a push-pull. But when we're creating, it's a net positive.
So how do we teach that to the younger population?
Yeah. Well, we teach it by introducing that as a topic, right? And continually talking about that so people can give that some thought and then shift the way that they think. And then we'll give some bullet points of things we can do every day, daily rituals, to help keep shifting our focus away from competition and then towards creating the life that we want. Yeah,
I agree. I think that it really starts with like the mental mindset. And I feel like there's no really attention given to like what's happening inside of our minds. Like why, when you go on Instagram, do you feel so insecure? Do you know what I mean? Like nobody's investigating that. Everybody's like, knows that, you know, there's all these comparison issues and all this bullying is going on, but nobody's like looking at the root of the problem.
I think also, from my perspective, we can look to social media to find models that help us, because there are people, when we have self-doubt, which is our topic today primarily, and we have self-doubt and we're questioning our own ability to do something or to be something or to feel a certain way, we can find through all of this information we have access to now, people that have been like us that have evolved to where we want to go. And so I think finding role models to follow is a benefit and a constructive use of all these media outlets that we have. I mean, I certainly do. Like, you can think of anything. I'm much older than the other two people on this podcast.
Not by much.
I'm 55. And so when I look at my next chapters of life, I'm just using this as something I thought about the last few weeks. And I'm looking about what I want to do with this phase of my life and keeping myself energized to keep momentum, as I get to these different age demographic brackets. I looked at Harlan Sanders, Colonel Sanders, his example, because he became a billionaire when he was 88. He was 65 and he was broke and couldn't live on a Social Security check. And that's when he started his career. So that's just one example, but that takes away from me that fear of not being as effective as I age. Just looking at his life, right? So we can find people that empower us in a way that's all positive instead of making us feel less than.
What was his company, just to the audience?
Colonel Sanders.
That was
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Exactly, which we shouldn't eat anyway. But yeah, he's a billionaire off of other people. But anyway, you said DM, by the way, just to let you know, as a 20-year-old, DM is like such normal talk, but that's private message, right? Through Instagram?
Yeah, that's like a direct message.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure, just to clear that up, okay?
Yeah.
But, I like to talk to my personal clients because I do a lot of fitness nutrition coaching, and I talk about uncluttering your mind, because this is all about negative self-talk. And George, you set some real great parameters for following people you admire on social media, especially if you're looking at an account and you're feeling a little on edge, you're feeling a little bit of doubt in yourself by looking at this account. Would you agree that maybe we shouldn't follow that person? Like what?
Definitely.
Okay, so maybe that's a little clue for you to say, wow, this is not someone that I want to be like because they intimidate me. But who do I want to be an intimidating person to others? So what do you do, Alexa, to help empower these younger folks within the schools so that they can really unclutter their minds and like almost pick out those weeds that are causing them to be held back?
That's a really good question, honestly, because I'm asked that a lot. And I think a lot of people have the assumption that I'll go into a school and I'm telling people, don't be on social media. But that's not, my job is social media. So what I try and say or really heavily emphasize is it's more so just having the tools to give to these kids that they're not given and the resources for when these issues do stem. Like when you do feel insecure by what you see on Instagram, or you do feel like you're getting depressed and, social media is playing a part in that. So it's really talking about, who to turn to and what to do, and also how to use your time more, efficiently and like effectively, because you're not getting anything out of like scrolling up and down and liking somebody's picture.
Right.
But we're living in this generation of this obsession with overnight fame and internet success and Instagramming and like becoming an Instagrammer. And like, that's not even a job description, but like now it kind of is. But I think that, getting an education, not that I went to college, but like whether that's living, really living and traveling and stuff, or being in school is going to teach you a lot more than Instagram ever will.
That's such a good point. Yeah. I love that. I think also that when we look at internet content, we need to set boundaries, right? Because it does, I'm a compulsive person. That's been a benefit to me and a blessing to me, right? Because it helps me to stay with something long enough to succeed. But at the same time, I can get into a negative pattern and I just do over and over again. So when I first got exposed to watching Facebook or to being involved in Facebook, it became too much for me. It became a time waster. So I actually, now my personal boundary is I turn it on Friday just to see what messages people have left me and any content, that would be applicable to my life. And then I leave it off. So I uninstall it and reinstall it once a week just because it was, it was allowing me to waste too much time.
Yeah,
so I think we all need, that's me, but everybody needs to at least think about boundaries for each social media outlet.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
What are you doing currently, Alexa, with the students that are really struggling with the bullying and the negative self-talk? Bring us through your programming a little bit.
Well, it really depends. So sometimes, we will put together like a panel of people and we'll focus on like cutting, sexting, bullying. And then sometimes we'll go into schools, for the most part, if it's a private school in a really, upper middle class area, then they don't want us to focus on those like deeper topics. So I'll try and introduce them in a very like light fashion. But we have a kind of survey that we send out to schools beforehand. So then they can reply and be like, here's what we want to be focused on most. And then it's 1 hour and it's really it's like the DARE program. So we really don't focus on substance abuse. It's more so, like cutting and social media, sexting, bullying. And then we try and have the girls and the guys together and really just start the conversation. And sometimes we have schools where there's a Q&A for like 30 minutes and kids have so many questions. And sometimes we have schools where like one topic comes up and everybody puts their head down because the whole row of kids is dealing with that same issue. So it's really just being open to like understanding that these kids are everybody's so insecure and so young and so vulnerable. And this is the first time they're ever being talked about these topics. So if we don't get a huge response, it's because they've never been talked about this in a school setting.
No, that's really good. I think maybe what just came to my mind as you're talking, Alexa, is I don't know if you encourage it, but it seems like if I'm dealing with my kids because of my age demographic, but my kids dealing with these issues that are destructive due to social media, it seems like I would want to talk to them about boundaries, or do want to talk to them about boundaries, and then writing those down, just like you would do anything that you're doing with intention, right? Unwritten goals of wishes, they say. So it's got to get written down, then it can be reviewed and monitored. But do you ever encourage that to like write down specific boundaries to change negative behavior?
Well, see, that's an interesting question because the boundaries part really comes, I find, a lot more with the parents. So I wish that schools sometimes let us talk more directly to the parents and the faculty because they're really the ones who should be like setting these boundaries outside of school. Because, most of the time, obviously in school, you're focusing on math and English and history. So these boundaries are not being discussed. So it really stems from your home life, like what you're doing when you're not in school. And none of these adults know how to bring that up, but they're the ones who these kids are looking up to. So I just try and kind of give, sometimes if I can talk to parents, more of a timeline of like when these topics should be introduced, because in that 1 hour we get in a school talk, I can't always like cover everything that like I'd really want to cover, if that makes sense.
And it sounds like we need like just intervention on two different levels here, intervention for the parents on how to deal with these kids who are being bullied, who've developed this negative self-talk, and then for the kids on how to even relate back the way they're feeling to their own parents. Because, my mother works as a guidance counselor and there's a lot of disconnect between the parents and the kids. And I mean, the kid will get in trouble and the parent is like, I don't understand why you're picking on my kid. And my mother will say, well, you obviously don't know what your kid is dealing with. Let's talk about this. So how do we bridge that? Because it sounds like you got a long journey ahead of you, and it sounds like you started something great, but where do you see your program going in an ideal world?
There is a huge disconnect. And I think the disconnect starts because when you think about like the DARE program, which is like what I had, which is only on substance abuse, every parent has gotten drunk and done something dumb and been needing to call somebody after a party. But now it's 2018 and our parents have not been bullied via Instagram or somebody slid it in their DMs. So this gap that we had before that was like a little bit like blurry is now so large that it doesn't even like, it's so confusing. And that's why parents can't really introduce this topic because they don't know how. So my ultimate goal would be which is what I started working on, to have kind of a curriculum that's sent out to schools that, schools can basically buy into, that is really introduced and required in health class, that starts and focuses, it starts, with substance abuse and drugs and alcohol, and then it goes into the bullying, and then it goes into social media. So that's what I'd like to eventually see it. becoming. But when I took on this project, back in 2016, I literally just thought it was a project. I never thought it was going to become an actual nonprofit, and they're not easy to run, and there's no financial backing, so you really have to love it. But that would be a goal too, is like to get some type of like financial backing, because schools never have budget either. So they don't have any money to pay anybody to even talk about this topic, which is why they're still focusing on drugs and alcohol, because there's no money to pay for anything else.
Wow, interesting. Alexa, you personally, is there anything that you do to keep your mind positive? Because you're dealing in some negative, kind of can be depressing subject matter. What do you do to keep yourself on point and positive and excited every day?
I like what you said about when you only go on Facebook one day a week, because I do this thing now where I don't go on social media on Sunday, like at all, on any of my technologies or my phones or whatever. So that's a huge thing that really has like helped me come kind of like back into reality and start the week on like a good note. But here's the thing. So I'm like such a oddly like, not oddly, but like honestly, like a very like genuine and authentic person. So when I'm like depressed, because I deal with depression and I deal with a lot of anxiety just running this company in general, I don't turn to social media to help me get through it. So the minute that I feel these feelings coming on, and because I know people follow me because I talk about these topics, the last thing I'm going to do is post on my Instagram story like, hi, I'm depressed today, like, you know, have a good Monday. I just turn it all off. I don't want to go on Instagram and show people that. But so that's how I deal with it. So when things are happening in my personal life, I don't share that on the internet. But I've noticed that a lot of people, I think, who can't or don't have a really strong network or relationships off of the internet, turn to the internet to explain about a breakup or explain about their depression. And I think in a way you can do it healthfully, but I think there's a lot of people who don't do it in the right way. And, you know, then they're putting so much about themselves on the internet, and it's like they're just opening them up to more negativity. But I just try and like meditate and exercise and turn my phone off like after 5 p.m.
And that works for you?
It does, because otherwise I get depressed with what I see on Instagram and I feel insecure. And the minute I have those feelings coming on, I have to remind myself that this is an app. Like, this is so stupid. It truly is so dumb. And like, as somebody who gets paid to post things on Instagram, it's super dumb. I like that I can connect with people.
I hope your sponsors don't hear you saying that, Alexa.
No, I mean, it's, you know, it's not necessarily that. It's more so just in the scheme of things, like it's my job. Yeah. I don't look at it as anything more than my job. So like when you leave your job, or when you leave like training with a client, you go back to your real life. So I post a picture or I see something on Instagram and it's probably somebody else posting an ad. But you have to realize, like, after I turn that Instagram off, whatever, I'm off my phone, like I'm the same person, but like I'm a little less like, I don't know, specific about certain things. But it's, like,
it's kind of cool. I think that if anything, that's a benefit for you that it's your career, because people have been echoing that they love following my account, Jay-Z Fitness Nutrition, because they think I'm funny. They think, wow, you know, you have weird stuff that happens in your day. I'm like, I actually do share real things that happen to me on my account. Not bad things, not dramatic things per se. I'm certainly not looking for validation on my account, but I think that people view me as a really strong woman, and I think that it's my responsibility to almost show the world that within this strength is normal stuff that happens to everybody, and I bring light to that. So is that, do you think, an area of opportunity to kind of take your account, since you do have all those followers, and almost not look for validation per se, but teach people how you navigate through those tough days?
Sure. And that's what I mean. I post and I'm very open and honest when things go wrong and stuff, but or if there's stress or something happened. But sometimes I'd honestly rather write like a blog post. Like when I started this, it was just a website. There was no really social media back then. So I would post something and then be like, you know, read a blog post on it, because you're getting a 15 seconds on an Instagram story to post about something or say something. So I love the idea of like being able to show people these things, but I don't think I necessarily need to say some of these heavy things or when difficult things happen in my life in 15 seconds. So I would rather like, or even I do like, I've done when things happen, like a YouTube video or a blog post. But for people who don't have those other platforms, they're using Instagram. But I truly use that platform for work, but also because, my job is to kind of, like you said, show people the real side of this world and this industry, good and bad. But like, you don't have to be dark.
Yeah, no, that's great. And you talked about exercising and meditating and the rituals that you do employ to keep yourself sane and to be able to diffuse anything negative that you have to deal with in the course of your job, which is awesome. And I think that that's what people need. That's what I search for to improve my life. I search for tools, for actual rituals that I can apply to my daily life that help shape me into something that's happier and more productive. And so I appreciate you sharing those tips, and I would encourage you just to be you and what works for you to share with your audience, and you'll continue to make the world a much better place, which is awesome.
You're so sweet.
I mean,
Thank
good
you.
for you. I just think you're adorable, and I'm grateful for what you're doing with your
Oh
life.
my God, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Same for both of you. I mean, exercise is the best thing that's also not, like, I don't think encouraged enough in schools. But there was actually one talk that we did at a school that was like a really unusual school, and they had like a yoga room, and it was like required that they do like some form of physical activity, but like, even PE classes are so silly and dumb, and you're not even actually exercising really most of the time. So I think alternative things like that, or even meditating and yoga and stuff, should be more required in schools. But that's
I could connect you to another not-for-profit called Extreme Unity. You guys could probably link up arms and, piece together the anti-bullying and the positive self-talk with physical activity, since they go into the inner schools and help enhance physical activity.
I love that. Oh my gosh, for sure. That's fantastic.
Yeah. I'd love to see your brands national.
Yeah. Alexa, this has been so fun, and it's been just a pleasure to get to know you over this format today, and just reading about what you're doing with your life. And it takes courage and passion, a lot of motivation, and so I just clap for you. Also, to our viewers, our next episode is going to be focused on being spiritually fit and how we can create more mindfulness and joy in our life and contribute more to the good things going on in the world. So make sure you tune in for that.
Excellent. Thank you, Alexa.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great day.
This has been Fit Because, hosted by Jennifer Zerling
and George Veeder. Be sure to follow us on social media at Fit Because Show on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
And for past episodes, be sure to visit our website at fitbecause.com.
Also, please subscribe to our show on iTunes and be sure to rate and comment. You may always request topics for our subsequent episodes.
And if you love this episode, please share it with someone you love so that we can continue spreading our mission to help people be fit.
Until next time, take care of yourself and know that your future is
Fit Because.